Every morning at 5:30 a.m., Marcus Johnson woke up in his small apartment on the east side of Philadelphia. The 53-year-old bus driver had followed the same routine for the past 15 years. He would make a strong cup of coffee, eat 2 pieces of toast with peanut butter, and kiss the photo of his late wife, Elaine, before heading out the door. By 6:15 a.m., Marcus arrived at the bus depot. His coworkers always knew when he walked in because of his signature greeting. "Good morning, good people." Even on the coldest winter days or the most humid summer mornings, Marcus brought warmth into the room. "Bus 87 is all yours today, Johnson," his supervisor, Tom, said as he handed over the keys. "They fixed that squeaky brake you reported yesterday." Marcus nodded with a smile. "Thank you, sir. Going to be a good day on Route 22, I can feel it." Route 22 covered a large part of the city, from the wealthy neighborhoods with their big houses and manicured lawns to the struggling areas where people worked multiple jobs just to get by. Marcus knew almost every regular passenger by name, and they knew him too. At the first stop, Mrs. Patterson boarded with her heavy grocery bags. Before she could struggle to carry them to a seat, Marcus was already helping her. "Let me get those for you, Mrs. Patterson. How's that grandson of yours doing in college?" The elderly woman smiled, the wrinkles around her eyes deepening. "You made the dean's list, Marcus. First one in our family." "That boy always had a good head on his shoulders," Marcus replied, genuinely happy for her. At the next stop, a group of high school students got on, loud and full of energy. Some bus drivers dreaded the teenage crowd, but not Marcus. He greeted them with respect, and in return, they respected him back. "Hey, Mr. J," called out Darnell, a tall basketball player. "We won the game last night." "I knew you would," Marcus said, giving the boy a fist bump. "What did I tell you about that jump shot of yours?" The morning continued like this at every stop. Marcus knew who was going to work, who was heading to doctor appointments, and who was just out running errands. He remembered details about their lives and asked about them. It wasn't just small talk, he truly cared. During his lunch break, Marcus parked the bus and sat on a bench in Franklin Park. He unwrapped the sandwich he had made that morning and watched people walk by. A young couple pushed a baby stroller. An old man threw bread to the pigeons. A businessman talked loudly on his phone. Everyone has a story, Marcus thought to himself. This was something his wife had always said before she passed away from cancer 8 years ago. She had been a kindergarten teacher, and like Marcus, she believed in the goodness of people. As he finished his sandwich, Marcus checked his watch. Break time was over. He walked back to his bus, greeting a few people along the way. What Marcus didn't know as he started the engine of Bus 87 that afternoon was that his ordinary life was about to change in ways he could never imagine. The route he had driven thousands of times was about to take an extraordinary turn, all because he was the kind of man who believed that helping others wasn't special, it was simply what people should do. The sky darkened early that Thursday afternoon. Marcus Johnson checked the weather app on his old phone during a brief stop. "Heavy thunderstorm warning," it read. He sighed, knowing rainy days always made his job more challenging. By 4:30 p.m., the storm hit Philadelphia with full force. Rain pounded against the windows of Bus 87, and the wind howled so loudly that Marcus had to turn up the volume of his announcements. Lightning flashed across the sky, followed by booming thunder that made some of the passengers jump in their seats. "Don't worry, folks," Marcus said in his calm, reassuring voice. "We'll get through this weather together. Just a little water, that's all." His words seemed to ease the tension. This was why people loved riding Marcus's bus. He had a way of making everyone feel safe. As Marcus carefully drove through the flooded streets, wipers working at full speed, he was extra alert. Visibility was poor, and he knew from experience that storms like this could lead to accidents. He reduced his speed and kept a firm grip on the steering wheel. At 5:15 p.m., Marcus approached the end of his route. Only 3 more stops to go before he could head back to the depot. That's when he noticed something unusual through the rain-streaked windshield. About a block away from his regular stop, at a bus stop for Route 17, stood 3 figures huddled together under a small umbrella that was clearly losing the battle against the wind. Even from a distance, Marcus could tell it was a woman with 2 small children. "That's not my stop," he thought to himself. Route 17 had stopped running at 5 p.m. today because of staff shortages. These people could be waiting for hours in this terrible weather. Without hesitation, Marcus pulled the bus over. As the doors opened, the woman looked up in surprise. She was soaking wet, her dark hair plastered to her face. The two children, a boy about 7 and a girl who couldn't be more than 5, clung to her legs, both crying softly. "This isn't Route 17, the woman said, confusion in her tired eyes. "I know, ma'am," Marcus replied gently, "but that route stopped running at 5 today. Please, come in out of this rain." The woman hesitated. "We don't have enough money for a different route. Our car broke down this morning, and I just spent our last dollars on medicine for my daughter's fever." Marcus waved away her concerns. "Don't worry about that. Nobody should be standing in this weather. Come on in." The other passengers, who had been watching this exchange, moved their bags to make room for the family. An elderly man even offered his seat near the front. As the woman and children settled in, Marcus noticed they were shivering. He adjusted the heat in the bus and pulled out a clean towel he kept in his personal bag. "Here," he said, handing it to the woman. "Dry the kids off a bit. My name's Marcus, by the way." "Thank you, Marcus," the woman replied, her voice thick with emotion. "I'm Sofia Garcia. These are my children, Miguel and Lucia." While driving, Marcus learned that Sofia was a single mother. Her husband was serving overseas in the military. Their apartment was on the other side of town, over 5 miles away. Their car had broken down that morning, forcing them to use public transportation. After spending hours at the doctor's office for Lucia's ear infection, they had missed the last bus on Route 17. As Marcus neared the end of his route, he made a decision that would change everything. By the time Marcus completed his regular route, the storm had only gotten worse. The rain fell in heavy sheets, and occasional flashes of lightning illuminated the darkening sky. Most passengers had already gotten off at their stops, hurrying to shelter with jackets over their heads or umbrellas fighting against the wind. Only Sofia Garcia and her 2 children remained on the bus, along with an elderly man who always rode to the last stop. Marcus pulled into the final station and announced, "End of the line, folks." The elderly man nodded at Marcus, as he did every day, and slowly made his way down the steps. Sofia gathered her children, preparing to leave. "Mrs. Garcia," Marcus called, turning in his seat. "Where exactly do you need to go?" Sofia looked down at her still damp clothes. "We live in the Riverside Apartments, about 5 miles east of here. I was hoping to call my neighbor for a ride, but she's not answering." Marcus checked his watch. It was 6:10 p.m. His shift had officially ended, and he needed to return the bus to the depot. But the thought of this family waiting for another bus or walking in the storm didn't sit right with him. "Wait here a minute," he said, pulling out his phone. He called the depot. "Hey Tom, it's Marcus. I've got a situation here." He explained about the stranded family. "I'm going to drop the bus off now, but then I'd like to drive them home in my car. That okay with you?" After getting approval, Marcus drove to the depot. He parked bus 87 in its usual spot and filled out his end-of-day paperwork faster than he ever had before. Sofia and the children waited quietly, Miguel playing with a small toy car he had in his pocket, Lucia leaning against her mother's shoulder, still looking unwell. "Come on," Marcus said, returning to them with a large umbrella. "My car's just over there." They dashed through the rain to Marcus's old blue Chevrolet. It wasn't fancy, but it was clean and well-maintained, just like everything else in Marcus's life. As they drove, Miguel's curiosity got the better of him. "Why are you helping us, Mr. Marcus? You don't even know us." Marcus smiled at the boy through the rearview mirror. "Well, my mama always taught me that we're put on this earth to help each other. Wouldn't be right to leave you folks stranded." Sofia shook her head in disbelief. "Most people wouldn't go this far out of their way." "I'm not most people," Marcus replied simply. During the drive, Marcus learned more about Sofia's situation. Her husband, Carlos, had been deployed overseas for the past 8 months. She worked 2 jobs, morning shifts at a bakery and evening shifts at a hospital cafeteria. Today was her rare day off, which she had spent taking Lucia to the doctor. "It's been hard without Carlos," she admitted quietly while the children dozed in the back seat. The car breaking down today was just the last straw. When they finally arrived at the Riverside Apartments, Marcus insisted on walking them to their door with his umbrella. The building was old but clean, with peeling paint on the stairwell walls. At their apartment door, Sophia turned to Marcus with tears in her eyes. I don't know how to thank you. Marcus reached into his wallet and pulled out a business card with his phone number. Listen, my sister works at Tony's auto shop. I bet you could look at your car for a fair price. And here's my number. If you ever get stuck again, call me before you stand in the rain, okay? Sophia nodded, clutching the card like it was a lifeline. As Marcus walked back to his car, he didn't know that someone had been watching this entire interaction. A passenger from his bus had followed in their car, recording the whole thing on their phone. By morning, Marcus's act of kindness would be seen by thousands. The next morning started like any other for Marcus Johnson. He woke up at 5:30 a.m., made his coffee, ate his toast, and kissed Elaine's photo. But when he arrived at the bus depot, something was different. People were looking at him, some smiling, others whispering to each other. There he is, said Daryl, another bus driver. The man of the hour. Marcus frowned, confused. What are you talking about? Tom, his supervisor, walked over with a tablet in his hand. You didn't see it yet? You're all over social media, Marcus. Marcus took the tablet, adjusting his reading glasses. On the screen was a video titled, Angel Bus Driver Saves Stranded Family in Storm. The thumbnail showed him holding his umbrella over Sophia and her children as they walked to his car. What in the world? Marcus whispered. The video started playing. It showed everything from the moment he had stopped his bus for Sophia at the wrong stop, through helping them onto the bus, and then later walking them to their apartment in the rain. Someone had been recording the whole time, adding captions like real-life hero and this is humanity at its best. I don't understand, Marcus said, handing the tablet back. Who filmed this? Jessica Taylor. Tom replied. She was on your bus yesterday. Said she started recording when you picked up that family because she was touched by what you did. By the time she followed you to the apartment complex, she knew she had to share it. Marcus shook his head. I was just helping someone who needed it, that's all. But it wasn't all. The video had over 200,000 views already and was growing by the minute. Comments poured in from people across the country. This man represents the best of America. I'm in tears watching this. Such a simple act of kindness means everything. We need more people like this bus driver in the world. By midday, local news stations were calling the transit authority. A reporter from Channel 6 News was waiting at one of Marcus's stops to interview him. Marcus, uncomfortable with the attention, gave short answers. I just did what anyone would do, he told the camera. But not everyone would drive strangers home in their personal vehicle after their shift ended, the reporter pressed. Marcus shrugged. They needed help. I could help. It's not complicated. The story spread to national news by evening. Marcus's phone kept buzzing with messages from old friends who had seen him on TV. Even his daughter in California called. Dad, you're famous, she laughed. My friends in San Francisco are sharing the video. This is silly, Marcus told her. Tomorrow they'll find something else to talk about. But the next day brought even more attention. The mayor of Philadelphia called to commend him. The transit authority announced they would give Marcus an award for exceptional service. Even celebrities were sharing the video, adding their own praise. What touched Marcus most, however, was the call he received from Sofia Garcia that evening. Marcus, she said, her voice shaky. People have been donating to help us. Someone started a fundraiser after seeing the video. There's enough money to fix our car and pay for Lucia's medicine for months. I don't know what to say. For the first time since the video went viral, Marcus felt a lump in his throat. That's wonderful, Sophia. You deserve the help. It's all because of you, she insisted. You didn't just help us get home that night. You changed our lives. After hanging up, Marcus sat quietly in his apartment. He looked at Elaine's photo. Can you believe all this fuss? He asked the picture. All I did was be decent to someone who needed it. But as Marcus got ready for bed, he had no idea that the biggest surprise was still to come. The video had caught the attention of someone very powerful, someone who decided that Marcus Johnson deserved more than just internet fame. 1 week after the video went viral, Marcus Johnson was trying his best to return to normal life. The media attention had begun to fade, though passengers still occasionally asked for selfies or thanked him for restoring their faith in humanity. Marcus handled it all with his usual humble grace, politely accepting compliments but always insisting he had done nothing special. What Marcus didn't know was that in a luxury hotel suite across town, several people were gathered around a laptop watching his video for the 10th time. That's the kind of American spirit we need to recognize, said former President Donald Trump, leaning back in his chair. Regular people doing extraordinary things without expecting anything in return. Trump was in Philadelphia as part of his community outreach initiative following his recent inauguration. The program aimed to highlight everyday heroes and bridge divides in communities across America. His team had been searching for local stories of exceptional citizenship, and Marcus's video had caught their attention immediately. "We've confirmed he's driving Route 22 tomorrow morning," said Sarah, one of Trump's assistants. "His shift starts at 7 a.m. and ends at 3 p.m. "Perfect," Trump nodded. "We'll surprise him around noon when he stops at Franklin Park for his lunch break. Have we contacted the transit authority?" "Yes, sir," replied Michael, his chief of staff. "They're fully on board, but have kept it completely confidential. Not even Marcus's supervisor knows." Trump smiled, satisfied with the plan. "Good. The genuine reaction is what matters here. This isn't about politics. It's about recognizing the best in Americans." The next morning, Marcus went through his usual routine, unaware of what was coming. The day was sunny and mild, a welcome change from the recent storms. His route was running smoothly, and he was looking forward to enjoying his lunch at his favorite bench in Franklin Park. At 11:55 a.m., Marcus pulled the bus into the transit stop near the park. 15-minute break, folks, he announced to the half-empty bus. "We'll resume the route at 12:10. As the few remaining passengers stepped off, Marcus grabbed his lunch bag and followed. He had just settled on his usual bench and unwrapped his sandwich when he noticed several black SUVs pulling up to the curb. Men in dark suits with earpieces stepped out, scanning the area. "Must be some politician in town," Marcus thought to himself, taking a bite of his sandwich. A small crowd began to gather as more security personnel appeared. Marcus was about to move to a quieter spot when one of the suited men approached him. "Mr. Johnson?" the man asked politely. Marcus nodded, confused. "That's me." "Would you mind staying right here for a moment, sir? Someone would like to meet you." Before Marcus could ask who, the door of the center SUV opened. A familiar figure stepped out, his distinctive hair catching the sunlight. People nearby gasped and started pulling out their phones to record. "Is that?" Marcus couldn't finish his sentence as he watched former President Donald Trump walk directly toward him. Marcus stood up quickly, his sandwich forgotten on the bench. His heart pounded in his chest as Trump approached with a broad smile and an extended hand. "Marcus Johnson," Trump said, his voice carrying across the suddenly quiet park. The bus driver with a heart of gold. "It's an honor to meet you, sir." Marcus, who was never at a loss for words on his bus, found himself speechless. He shook Trump's hand automatically, his eyes wide with shock. Mr. President, I don't understand," he finally managed to say. Trump placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder. "I saw what you did for that family in the storm. That's the America I believe in, people helping people, no questions asked, no recognition expected." As cameras flashed around them and the crowd grew larger, Marcus realized this moment would change his life in ways he could never have imagined. The next morning, Marcus Johnson arrived at the bus depot earlier than usual. After his surprising encounter with former President Trump at the park, he had barely slept. The meeting had been brief but overwhelming. Trump had praised his actions, taken a few photos with him, and promised they would meet again soon to discuss something special. "You're early today," Tom said as Marcus signed in. "Couldn't sleep," Marcus admitted. "Too much excitement yesterday." Tom grinned. "Meeting a president will do that to you. But today's just a normal day, right? Back to the regular route." Marcus nodded, relieved. "That's exactly what I need. Normal." Bus 87 was waiting for him, freshly cleaned and fueled. Marcus ran his hand along the side of the vehicle affectionately before climbing inside. This bus had been part of his life for so long it felt like an old friend. The morning route went smoothly. The regular passengers had all heard about Marcus meeting Trump, and many wanted to hear the story firsthand. Marcus told it simply, downplaying his own reactions and focusing instead on how kind the former president had been. By 10:30 a.m., Marcus was on the second half of his morning route. He pulled up to the stop at Oak Street, where usually only 2 or 3 people waited. Today, however, something was different. A small crowd had gathered, and several people were holding phones up as if recording. That's strange, Marcus thought as he opened the doors. The first few passengers boarded normally, though they all had excited smiles on their faces. Then, to Marcus's complete shock, former President Donald Trump himself appeared at the steps of the bus. "Good morning, Marcus," Trump said with a broad smile. "Mind if I ride along today?" Marcus's mouth fell open. His hands froze on the steering wheel as Trump, accompanied by a single security agent, climbed the steps. The other passengers broke into applause and cheers. "Mr. President," Marcus finally managed to say. What are you doing here?" Trump laughed, his voice filling the bus. "I told you we'd meet again soon. I wanted to see firsthand how Philadelphia's favorite bus driver does his job." Marcus couldn't believe what was happening. Former President Donald Trump was standing on his bus, wearing a regular suit rather than his usual formal attire, looking ready to take a ride on public transportation like any other citizen. "Please, have a seat, sir," Marcus said, gesturing to the priority seating near the front. Trump sat down, smiling at the other passengers who were all recording this unexpected moment. "Don't mind me, Marcus. Just drive your route like you normally would. Pretend I'm not even here." That was impossible, of course. Marcus's hands trembled slightly as he closed the doors and pulled away from the curb. His mind raced with questions. Why was the former president on his bus? What was going to happen? As they drove, Trump chatted easily with the other passengers, asking about their lives and listening intently to their answers. He seemed genuinely interested in each person. Meanwhile, Marcus tried to focus on driving safely, though he kept glancing in the mirror at his extraordinary passenger. At the next stop, more people boarded, gasping when they saw who was sitting at the front of the bus. Word had spread quickly through social media, and at each subsequent stop, larger crowds were waiting, many just hoping to see Trump through the windows. "You're quite popular in this city, Marcus," Trump observed as they continued the route. "Everyone I've talked to says you're the best driver on the line." Marcus smiled shyly. "I just try to treat people right, sir. That's all." Trump nodded thoughtfully. "That's what caught my attention. In today's world, treating people right isn't as common as it should be." As they approached the midpoint of the route, Marcus began to wonder what would happen next. Was Trump just going to ride for a few stops and then leave? But as they pulled into Franklin Park, the same location where they had met yesterday, Marcus saw something that made his heart skip a beat. A small stage had been set up near the bus stop with a microphone and several chairs. A crowd had gathered, and news cameras were positioned around the area. Marcus suddenly realized this wasn't just a surprise visit, it was something much bigger. Marcus brought Bus 87 to a complete stop at the Franklin Park station. His hands were steady on the wheel, but his heart pounded so hard he thought everyone must hear it. Through the windshield, he could see the crowd gathered around the small stage, at least 100 people, maybe more. "Well, Marcus," said former President Trump, standing up from his seat, "shall we?" He gestured toward the door with a smile. Marcus nodded, unable to find words. He opened the bus doors and watched as Trump stepped out to cheers from the waiting crowd. Security personnel immediately surrounded the former president, creating a path through the people. "They want you too, Marcus," Trump called back, motioning for the bus driver to follow him. Marcus hesitated. He looked around at his passengers, who were all smiling and nodding encouragingly. "Go on, Mr. J," said Darnell, the high school basketball player who rode Marcus's bus every day. "This is your moment." Taking a deep breath, Marcus stepped down from his bus. The crowd's cheers grew louder. People called his name and held up phones to take pictures. Marcus had never experienced anything like this in his entire life. He felt both terrified and strangely moved as he followed Trump toward the stage. When they reached the steps to the platform, Marcus noticed familiar faces in the front row. There was Sofia Garcia with Miguel and Lucia, all three looking healthier and happier than when he had last seen them. Beside them stood Tom from the depot and several of Marcus's fellow bus drivers. Even Mrs. Patterson was there, her elderly face beaming with pride. Trump approached the microphone at center stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for coming today. We're here to honor someone special, someone who reminds us what America is all about." The crowd quieted as Trump continued. "A week ago, Marcus Johnson was just doing what he always does, driving his bus with care and looking out for the people of Philadelphia. When he saw a family stranded in a storm, he didn't just drive by. He didn't just do the minimum. He went above and beyond, taking them home in his own car after his shift ended. Trump turned to Marcus, who stood awkwardly beside him. Marcus didn't do this for attention or praise. He did it because that's who he is, a man of character and compassion. Trump then pulled out a small box from his pocket. Opening it, he revealed the golden medal with the presidential seal. Marcus Johnson, on behalf of a grateful nation, I'd like to present you with this Presidential Citizen's Medal for exemplary deeds in service to your community. Marcus stared at the medal in disbelief as Trump placed it around his neck. The weight of it felt strange against his bus driver's uniform. Mr. Johnson, Trump said, handing him a document, I'm also pleased to announce the establishment of the Marcus Johnson Scholarship Fund with an initial donation of $100,000. This fund will help children of transit workers pursue higher education. And for your friends, he gestured toward Sophia and her children, we've arranged for complete coverage of little Lucia's medical expenses and a reliable new car for their family. Tears filled Marcus's eyes. He hadn't cried since Elaine's funeral 8 years ago, but now he couldn't hold back. His hands trembled as he finally stepped toward the microphone. I don't know what to say, Marcus began, his voice thick with emotion. I'm just a bus driver. I did what anyone would do. He looked out at the crowd, at all the familiar faces from his route. Every day, I see good people working hard, helping each other in small ways. Those little kindnesses don't make the news, but they matter. They matter so much. Marcus touched the medal at his chest. This isn't just for me. It's for every person who's ever stopped to help someone else without expecting anything in return. That's the real America I see every day on my bus. The crowd erupted in applause. Sophia Garcia wiped tears from her eyes. Trump placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder, visibly moved by the bus driver's humble words. As the cheers continued, Marcus looked up at the blue sky above Franklin Park. Somewhere, he felt certain, Elaine was watching, and she was smiling. 3 months had passed since that remarkable day in Franklin Park. Summer had arrived in Philadelphia, bringing warm sunshine and longer days. On this particular Monday morning, Marcus Johnson sat in the break room at the bus depot, sipping his coffee and reading the community newsletter. There you are, said Tom, walking in with a stack of papers. Got the latest numbers for your scholarship fund. You're not going to believe this. Marcus put down his cup. What's it up to now? Over $500,000, Tom announced proudly. Donations keep coming in from all over the country. The story just won't die down. Marcus shook his head in amazement. What had started as a simple act of kindness during a rainstorm had grown into something he could never have imagined. The Marcus Johnson Scholarship Fund had already selected its first 5 recipients, children of transit workers who would begin college in the fall with full financial support. By the way, Tom added, have you seen the new buses? Marcus smiled. He had indeed seen them. The Philadelphia Transit Authority had launched a new community service initiative inspired by his story. 10 buses in the fleet now featured a special message painted on their sides. Kindness drives us forward, inspired by Marcus Johnson. Still feels strange seeing my name like that, Marcus admitted. After finishing his coffee, Marcus headed out to Bus 87, his faithful vehicle that had become somewhat famous in its own right. Tourists sometimes came just to ride the kindness bus, as some had taken to calling it. As Marcus settled into the driver's seat, he noticed a small package with a card on the dashboard. The card read, 3 months ago today, thank you for changing our lives. The Garcia family. Inside the package was a handmade frame containing a photo of Sophia, Miguel, and Lucia standing beside their new car. They were all smiling brightly. Marcus carefully placed the frame in his bag, touched by the gesture. The morning route was busy as usual, but Marcus noticed something different these days. Passengers were kinder to each other, offering seats more readily, helping with heavy bags, saying thank you and good morning more often. It was as if his bus had become a special place where people remembered their better selves. At the Oak Street stop, the same one where Trump had surprised him 3 months earlier, a young woman boarded with 2 small children. Marcus immediately recognized her from news reports. She had been homeless until recently. You're Jessica Williams, aren't you? Marcus asked as she paid her fare. I saw the story about your bakery. The woman smiled shyly. Yes, that's me. I can't believe you recognized me. Jessica Williams had been inspired by Marcus's story to help a homeless family herself, letting them stay in her spare room while the father looked for work. Her act of kindness had also gone viral, leading to community support that helped her open a small bakery providing jobs to people transitioning out of homelessness. Your story gave me courage, she told Marcus as her children found seats. I always wanted to help others but never thought I could make a difference. Throughout the day, Marcus encountered more stories like this: a teacher who had started a mentoring program, a teenager who organized a neighborhood cleanup, a retired man who began offering free car repairs to single parents. All of them mentioned being inspired by what they now called the Marcus effect. As his shift ended, Marcus drove bus 87 back to the depot for the last time that day. Tomorrow would mark his 500th day driving this same route. Nothing exceptional about that. Just showing up, day after day, trying to do right by the people who rode his bus. Walking home, Marcus passed a small community center where a new mural had been painted. It showed diverse hands reaching out to help each other, with words beneath it reading, "Small acts of kindness create big waves of change." Marcus stopped to admire the artwork. He thought about Elaine, about what she would say if she could see all that had happened. He could almost hear her voice. "See, Marcus, I always told you that kindness matters." With a smile, Marcus continued home. He didn't consider himself a hero or even anyone special. He was just a bus driver who had done what seemed right at the moment. But sometimes, that's all it takes to start a wave that keeps growing, touching shore after shore, changing the landscape one ripple at a time.